This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
This week on Off the Record, Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles announces a $250 million investment to advance racial equity. So where will the money go and where's it coming from? Plus, Charlotte City Council split on how to move forward with a proposed billion-dollar transit plan. Will we see a tax hike to help foot the bill? And the health department gets vaccines for kids after this week's approval by the CDC. But how will the vaccines be distributed and how much longer will we have to wear masks? Also, President Biden announces new vaccine rules for companies in the new year, and American Airlines struggles to staff flights. So what does that mean for holiday travel? Lots to talk about next on PBS Charlotte. From our PBS Charlotte studios in historic Plaza Midwood, I'm Sarah Colon Harrison for Jeff Sonnier, and we're off the record talking about the stories you've been talking about this week. And if you watch the news, read the news, and listen to the news, well, you'll recognize the names and faces around our virtual table. Danielle Shemtab with Axios Charlotte, Mark Becker, WSOC-TV, Dedrick Russell, WBTV, and Eli Portillo with the UNC Charlotte Urban Institute. And you can also join the conversation. Just email your questions and comments to offtherecord@WTVI.org. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to go ahead and start with Mayor Lyles' $250 racial equity initiative. That was a big announcement this week. It addresses 4 different areas, something she's been working on for the past 18 months. She said it exceeded her expectations. Danielle, you were there for the announcement. What was that like?
Yeah, so this was basically a goal of raising $250 million, of which they've actually raised the majority. It's about $196 million so far from some of the biggest companies around town, names like Bank of America, Lowe's, Truist. And so basically she wants to focus it on 4 areas aimed at addressing, the long-standing impacts of systemic racism. Those 4 areas are bridging the digital divide, investing in the corridors of opportunity, Johnson C. Smith, and kind of enhancing the school, making it a top 10 HBCU, as well as employer commitments to hiring a diverse workforce. So I think there's a lot of questions still about how that'll get implemented. They outlined these broad categories, they outlined how much they have, how much they're looking to raise, but there's still a lot to be worked out in terms of how those investments will work and kind of how they'll be tracked over time to lead to accountability.
Mm-hmm. I was reading that there were a lot of big companies that contributed already that have made donations. 10 million from Lowe's, 3 million from Atrium Health, 3 million from Truist, 10 million from Bank of America. So it's already getting a lot of support. Dedrick, you were there as well for the announcement.
Yeah, Mayor Vi Lyles, she got very emotional when she was talking about $250 million initiative that's on the table, and I guess she's very excited that she has not only partners but partners in the city that are willing to put not $10 or $15, but millions of dollars into this effort. And one thing that really jumped out to me is that how much money that they are going to invest in Johnson C. Smith University, Charlotte's historically Black college and university. They want that to be a top tier university. They want to attract top students to the university, so they're going to have scholarships available, and they're going to have a finance, academics, retail, pre-med. They're going to up the ante so they can make sure that the students who go to Johnson C. Smith, that they will be, geared for success once they get their degree. And they're also going to jump in and they're going to have internships their first year there. So, education, eliminates the barriers when it comes to economic mobility. And truly, they're putting their money where their mouths are when it comes to removing that barrier so that economic mobility can happen for students as soon as they graduate from college.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It even made national news. It was in Forbes magazine. Eli, what were your comments?
Yeah, I think that there are 2 things that are interesting about this and really separate it a bit from past initiatives that we've seen beyond just the dollar amount. The first is that instead of, more direct aid, things like housing money to try to help people in the shorter term, this is more focused on setting long-term conditions for racial equity and for people to have success. So this is, I think, more about setting the table and creating conditions for success. And also, these are 4 work streams that are really tied to measurable goals and outcomes. So in the past, I think some of the initiatives we've seen here in Charlotte have been a little more nebulous, maybe a little bigger and kind of more aspirational. In 5 to 10 years, we will really be able to look back and say, okay, did Johnson C. Smith University become one of these top 10 HBCUs? Do we have a measurable increase in the number of people of color who are in C-suite executive track positions? So we'll be able to really look back and evaluate if we were willing to do that as a community, whether this works or not.
Mark?
Yeah, to extend your metaphor there, Eli, setting the table, now we got to get cooking, right? We've got the money, we can buy the groceries, let's just, and get it going. But we need to hire the people to cook, we need to hire the people to plan the menu, we need to hire the people to really make this happen. That is going to be the real challenge at this point. It's all good right now, but we need to make it happen. And this is a great start, but now there has to be, behind the scenes or otherwise, a lot of work to be done, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and I think we ought to keep an eye on it.
It is a lot of work. Dedrick, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I do. Mark said that now we have to get cooking, but with this money, now people will be able to go online to find the recipe to cook, because some of this money is going to help with that digital divide. We know that with remote learning and things like that it just emphasized that there are some people, 16,000 households, something like that, right now without the access to internet. And this money is going to help alleviate that problem so that no household in Mecklenburg County would not be able to afford and sustain having that Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, we have to start somewhere, right? And this is definitely a big start. Danielle, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to think about who's going to be at that table. The city has talked about having community members, having business leaders, having, sort of a range of folks on this board that's going to be basically an oversight board for the money. But I think the question that I spoke with some advocates after the announcement, the question they have is, are those who have been historically harmed by racism and by the policies that leaders are trying to fix going to be helping make the decisions about how to distribute the funding? And I think that's going to be an important question moving forward.
Eli?
I think that a lot of this is about erasing or changing historical harms. And that's a really good point that Danielle brings up. A lot of the historical wrongs that we are trying to correct in this community, things like housing, urban renewal, redlining, all these things that are really kind of baked into Charlotte's patterns of where we live, where we go to school, where we work. A lot of them happened because communities didn't have input, because, Black people were excluded from decision making, because the powers that be didn't factor in, what do the people here want? They just factored in what would be best for growing Charlotte, for our city's prestige and, metaphorically, the skyline. So I think that that's an important difference to keep in mind and keep an eye on moving forward.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. I want to talk now about vaccines. The health department got about 13,000 vaccines, the CDC approved vaccines for kids ages 5 to 11. I know, Dedrick, you cover education and talk to parents and students. What was the feedback on the vaccine? Are parents getting more comfortable with it?
Yeah, parents and the kids are getting more comfortable. We were at a site and we interviewed several kids who got the shot in the arm, and they were very excited. They didn't need to convince. And it was so interesting to hear the students after they got their shot. They said that now that I have that shot, now I can have sleepovers. Now I can go to Disney. And now I can be with my friends and, without, thinking that I'm going to be really, sick if I do get COVID-19. But it was just very interesting how that happened. And they were very bold, and they were very, they weren't hesitant when it came to taking the vaccine. But we know that that this is a divided country. And we know that some parents will not allow their kids to get the vaccine. But we did talk to some parents who were excited that they were able to give their kid the shot in the arm.
Mm-hmm. It's something we don't normally think about. Most of us, a lot of the adults have gotten vaccines, but the kids feeling kind of left behind and can't do what they like to do because they haven't had a chance to have the vaccine. Mark?
Yeah, I mean, kids have been getting vaccines to go to school for a long time, right? This, of course, is different, politically and otherwise. This just is different. So what we saw and what we have seen is, all those who, let's just say it like it is. I mean, these kids are 5, 6, 7. By definition, they're not making their own decisions. Their parents are making their decisions for them. So the parents are the ones who are all about getting the vaccine. The real interesting challenge will be down the road. Let's see if there are some of those parents who are still on the fence who will, get their kids the vaccine after this initial rush. I'm not so sure. I mean, I think the percentages of adults being vaccinated, about 57, 60% in Charlotte now, Mecklenburg County. I would be surprised if the age 5 to 11 group ever approaches that. I just think parents are going to be a little more reluctant. We have the eager ones now, but we'll see. It's going to take a push.
Yeah. Well, the health department definitely trying to make it accessible. I heard the department's director saying that the vaccines will be available at all 3 of their sites next week. No appointments necessary. People can just walk in. Dedrick, did you want to add something?
Yeah, some kids, some reasons why they are excited is because some kids are dealing with sickness. Some kids have immune deficiencies and asthma and things like that. So for them to, and they're used to taking medicine, right? They're used to getting what they need to do in order for them to survive. But now getting this shot it just upped the ante, and it just made them even that much more excited that, hey, that even with the sickness and the illness that I am dealing with, this is just one less thing that I have to worry about and one less thing that I can now do because of the shot. So I found that very interesting as well.
Yeah, let's talk about the COVID positivity rate here in Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County saying they're not going to do away with the indoor mask mandate until that percentage comes down to 5%. Right now, it's somewhere around 7%. Do you think we'll ever find our way out of this anytime soon?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, we're living in the moment. We tend to do that these days. The Twitter sphere, I call it. Yeah, I mean, eventually, right, 10 years from now, let's hope we can look back on this and say, wow, that was tough, but we made it through. The question is how long? It's taking longer than I think any of us thought to get through this. But yes, positivity rate's still higher than we would like here. It is trending down, but I think it'll be a while yet before we reach that. I think they wanted 5% for a week or more, right? Below 5%. I don't know that we'll have it before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Danielle, you wanted to add to that?
Well, I think it's always a balance, right? Because the masks also work to reduce the spread. And so every time when you do lift a mask mandate, even if it goes under 5%, then people might feel, more comfortable to go back to everything they were doing before. And then you kind of have this balance of new variants and people aren't being as careful. And then you might have to go back. And I think that the fear politicians have is going back because it's a lot harder to reinstate restrictions.
Dedrick?
Yeah, it seems like county commissioners, they're a little bit more optimistic because before it would have to be a 5% positivity rate for 30 days straight. But now they're saying, only about 7 days straight. So you can see how people are ready to get back to normal because they just lowered the numbers. It used to be 30, now it's 7 days. So that stood out to me as well.
Mm-hmm. And President Biden also made an announcement this week that companies with 100 employees or more have to have their employees vaccinated by January 4th or be fined. Do you think that's going to put a strain on companies? Do you think they'll be able to facilitate that by that time?
I think they'll get some pushback. I mean, I've heard it already. There are some companies that will say, we can't handle this. We can't make this work. And one of the real questions is, what kind of enforcement can OSHA or whoever would, hand down the fines do? When we've had the mask mandates here in Mecklenburg and we've asked police, are you going to go and enforce this? They say, no, we're not going to be the mask police. So who's going to be, we'll just deal with complaints, and when fights break out, we'll be there. Who's going to be policing this practically? A lot of companies in this country with more than 100 employees, and who's going to be saying, got to do this? I think you're going to see the same thing we've seen all over, where you're just going to have some companies that are just going to refuse to, and there will be others that'll toe the line.
Yeah. Anyone else may add? Eli?
Yeah, this is America. I'm sure there will be plenty of lawsuits in the coming months that will be following over aspects of this. But OSHA officials have been saying, hey, we make people wear hard hats on construction sites. We make people wear, cut-resistant gloves when they're in places like food processing plants. So this is a safety rule, and we know how to enforce it. Just this morning, the news came out that the U.S. added 531,000 jobs. It's a really sharp increase after hiring slowdowns, and a good sign for the economy. So I think that as we see more hiring as the Delta variant recedes, you'll probably hear more people making the argument, look, the Delta variant came, it was terrible for the economy. The Delta variant is waning, the economy's looking better. If you want a strong economy and you want this to continue, we are going to need to tie that to vaccination, keeping workers healthy, keeping us from having to do quarantining and those measures. So I think that that's probably an argument that you'll hear a lot in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Dedrick?
Yeah, absolutely. Eli is absolutely right. We know that mandates do work, because if you just go back to more than a year ago, what happens when we did not have a vaccine? Football games shut down, basketball shut down, jobs shut down, restaurants were closed, people lost jobs. So in order to make sure that we don't go back down that road, leaders are saying that, hey, we have to have vaccines. We have to have you tested at least once a week, because we don't want to go back down that road where schools are shut down. And we all know that when you shut down schools, then that means there's a loss of teaching and learning. And then people cannot get the education they need in order to be productive citizens. So when you add all of that up, the argument will be that, it's best to go down this road so we don't have to go down a dark road.
Yeah. I also want to talk about the proposed transit plan. City Council still sort of undivided on that. Eli, you want to talk about where we are with that right now?
Yeah. So, this plan, it's surprising, but it's been almost a year since the Charlotte Moves Task Force released their ideas for how to build the next phase of Charlotte's transportation system. That came out, I think, in December 2020, the final recommendations. And somehow, a year later, I think there's less consensus and more question marks on this effort. To pass a $13.5 billion transit plan, most of which would be rail-based, but it would also include roads, greenways, sidewalks, all that good stuff. It would require a 1-cent sales tax, which would require approval from the voters in a referendum, which would require the legislature to allow that. And that's where we've really seen kind of an impasse. The elections were delayed. It's also interesting to think we were supposed to originally vote on this sales tax in the city elections this week, but because of the redistricting delays and the census delays, those elections were pushed to next year. What we saw last week was City Council kind of arguing about who should take the lead on promoting this plan, a lot of questions about how much it's going to cost and whether the plan is baked. What happened was Republican Council member Tariq Bakari and Braxton Winson, Democratic Council member who lead the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, they wanted to take the lead on taking this plan to Raleigh and building regional support. City Council voted no against that. This week, Tariq Bakari went to Raleigh and posted a long series of online posts on Twitter and Facebook of him with basically every top Republican lawmaker laying out things they want in the transit plan. So it was really a pretty bold statement of, hey, you're not going to pass this thing. You're not going to do this without me and without the Republicans in Raleigh. And look, I'm showing you, I'm driving to Raleigh and talking to them myself, whether you vote my committee in or not. So I think we're kind of at a sticking point. I don't know what's going to happen next, but it's tough to see things moving forward under the current plan as it is now.
Danielle?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in the same sticking point that we were with the red line specifically too. I mean, the folks who went to Raleigh, Bakari and a strategist, Larry Shaheen, they mentioned that lawmakers wanted to see this red line be the focus of the transit plan as opposed to the silver line. The Northern Mecklenburg voters are still feeling shortchanged by the fact that they've never received this line. And I think there's a lot of questions about whether it will happen and whether it's being promised and could actually be delivered, given that Norfolk Southern has not expressed any interest in giving the right to those tracks. So I think a lot of the same questions still remain, and we don't really know where things go from here.
Mm-hmm. I want to switch gears now to American Airlines. Mark, you covered this week. It was a bit of a mess. Lots of cancellations over the weekend. It started out in Texas with some weather issues, but then just spiraled from there. A lot of that because there just aren't enough staff, not enough flight attendants.
A bit of an issue is a bit of an understatement. I think it was really a mess. I talked to passengers out there who said they've never seen it quite like this. And what's interesting about this, Sarah, is that there was this weather event in Texas, and I've talked to people who said it was real, but we certainly didn't hear about it the way we hear about hurricanes or big, massive ice storms or snowstorms. So this one kind of came out of the blue, or literally, or did it? Because this also coincided with the end of the month, just before American was scheduled to bring back a bunch of people who they had, flight attendants at least, who they had laid off or furloughed during the pandemic's worst months. So they were supposed to come back November 1st. Well, this is October 30th, 31st. And there were hundreds of flights canceled, many delayed. And of course, the hubs got hit the worst, Dallas and here in Charlotte. And it took 2 or 3 days to really untangle that. I know a guy who was in New York, and he had to get back to work on Monday, and he drove. He rented a car and drove from New York 12 hours so he could be at work on Monday morning. Talk to the union spokesman for the pilots union for American, and he said, look, we were ready. American has a fundamental problem connecting pilots and flight crews with planes when there's any weather involved. So he was blaming the airline for not really having a better plan. And I suspect that's probably true, but there may be other factors involved here. Bottom line is, we've got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. They better have a better plan in case there's a windstorm, a couple weeks from now.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't get to travel last year because of COVID, so I'm guessing a lot of them will want to travel this year to see their families. Eli?
And I think that this kind of disruption, which we've seen with Southwest, it's also kind of reminiscent of the supply shortages we have and people who are unable to, get things shipped on time. These kind of disruptions, I think, are one reason why, even as the economy looks really strong on paper, we're seeing these strong hiring numbers, stock markets at record levels. People are still so discontented with the economy because they feel that in 100 little ways, whether it's inflation or disrupted service or difficulty getting something from the store, they feel that things are not as good as they look on paper. And I think this is one part of that puzzle and helps explain why in what should be and looks like a booming economy in many ways, you still have people so dissatisfied.
Yeah, anybody else want to add to that?
I'm booking a flight. I'm flying out tonight. So.
Are you? Are you really?
I am.
Nice. Well, hopefully you won't have any cancellations. I did want to throw in something fun. Wicked did very well in its recent run. Do you think people are just very excited to get back out to the theater?
People are excited to get out, right? I mean,
really
I've been to a couple of Hornets games, and they're rocking. People are going out. Everything but the courts. I did a story on the courts this week, and the courts have trouble staying open. Anyway, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'd rather go to Wicked than to a court hearing.
Yes, I would absolutely rather go to
Wicked court hearing.
Yeah.
Unless you did a Wicked crime, yeah. So yeah, I saw Wicked, and amazing, and I guess they did have COVID protocol. You had to wear masks and things like that. But just to be able to sit there and just to be able to hear, music and song and see acting and things like that, it just does something to you. So I'm not surprised that the numbers are well, because people are ready to do something and return to normal, because Charlotte is an arts and theaters community, and we love our arts and theater.
Yeah, it definitely exceeded expectations. I think we all need a little hope and joy right now, just coming out of this COVID and this pandemic. Well, guys, thank you so much. We are winding down. That's all the topics we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week. And if you have any comments or questions, you can always send them to offtherecord@WTVI.org. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.
A production of PBS Charlotte.